Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are on the planet. I know I have listeners for Dimensions TV, DTV, all around the world. Tonight I have the great pleasure and honor to be hosting my first German speaker. His mother tongue is German. He's very famous. His name is Harald Kautz Vella. And Harald, where are you from in Germany and where are you located tonight?
Located is easy to answer. I'm somewhere on the flat countryside between Berlin and Hamburg.
Okay. And
where I come from is a long story because we never stayed anywhere for longer than 2-3 years. So it's not even a region in Germany I could name. Maybe I'm a Western German child. It's the only thing that might count or have some input to understand where I come from, but I live in the East for 20 years.
Okay, so we're almost neighbors because we're Europeans, one country away. You're an independent scientific researcher, and your revealing work really was founded on a combination of biophoton research and scalar physics, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you started with hardcore chemistry and physics, and which led you to exposing the hidden agenda of the anti-natural assimilation of all natural life forms on this planet, and at the end towards spiritual transcendence. So you're one of the rare researchers, I believe, that can put together both the spiritual, metaphysical, and the scientific aspects of your research. And you started to look at the topics of AI, artificial intelligence, chemtrails, Morgellons, smart dust, nanotechnologies, while also looking at environmental protection analysis. And you came across a number of substances that shouldn't have been in nature because they are 100% artificial and they are high-tech. And those substances go back to transhumanistic technologies, which is the attempt to get an interface between artificial intelligence and biological intelligence. So basically tonight, we're going to speak about the alien terraforming agenda, and you're going to explain to us maybe why this engineered mass poisoning, and also you're going to reveal and explain a few remedies for conscious humans. You'll also be talking, because this was my request, it may be a little bit different from other interviews that you've done before, from the lies of peak oil and non-fossil fuel to the AI alien black goo. You will discuss this black alien nanotech outbreak, its substance absorbing all of human consciousness via the transhumanistic agenda and its DNA degenerative program. And also at the end, you're going to give us the solutions with Aquarius Technologies, the solutions with your website, timeloopsolution.com, which is a consortium of scientists that you founded in 2013 with the objective to understand the Morgellons disease and announce possible prophylactic solutions to be found in the field of environmental medicine. So this is a big program. I'm going to ask you at the end, can environmental medicine heal mankind amidst this dark era, crippled with viruses issued from military labs? Possibly an end cycle, maybe the all end cycle of all cycles, according to some, or will the AI infection swallow and digest all of human soul intelligence, or will we be sent back to oblivion and a new Atlantean flooding cycle and a possible reset for a civilization? I know I sent you a couple of links by email regarding a new evidence on French TV, which is the first time in history of French TV that a French TV series actually showed black goo a couple of weeks ago on Arte, which is a German-based channel. And it was the first time actually they showed black goo duplicating people. It was like kind of a goofy series, but anyway, more like comedy. But it's the first time on national TV in France that they show black goo on Arte, except for the old X-Files series episodes and the movies like Lucy, Prometheus, and so forth. Do you think there's some kind of disclosure, indirect disclosure through comedy in this case, or through Hollywood and Hollywood movies like Lucy and Prometheus and X-Files?
Yeah, that's a funny question, because there's from my perspective, a huge misunderstanding about what creativity is. We think that being creative is using your imagination to invent stuff, to access truth on a non-linear level. And this is why all these creative people get access to things that are important for humanity to know. So there's no intention of revealing things. Maybe in single cases, yes, but with most of the people who just do creative writing, script writing, write novels that then are turned into films, whatever, they're just creative, and this act of creativity contains or brings up more truth than the news will feed us with. So this is kind of the core process why it's so interesting to look into. Yeah, the thing with all these appearance of black goo and other leaking truth in TV shows is that there's a huge misunderstanding about what creativity is. We think creativity is using the imagination to come up with weird invented stuff that kind of has some aesthetic value. But that's actually not the case. If you really understand what creativity is, it's the ability to pull truth from the background fields, from your heart chakra, to just have insight into the things that are actually there, not visible, but it's an important input to understand the red line within the development of human history, or to understand what actually happens in your lifetime. For a good example, if you look into Star Trek, the entire Borg issue of races being assimilated by AI. This is not coming from fantasy. This is something that is actually happening. It's happening with us. And people need input to be able to deal with this. And this is where the creativity jumps in. So we can't say there's intentional revealing of something. This is kind of part of the human nature that is there to reveal things that are important to know for us. Doesn't mean that everything that is fiction is true, but especially the core fascinating topics, pictures, ideas that continue to pop up every now and then and attract a lot of attention. Also, the amount of fascination people develop for a topic or an idea also shows how much truth is in it. So if everybody gets fascinated by the black goo idea, it's very likely that there's something behind that needs to be looked at.
Right, because Intel is behind Hollywood, and the big movie making machine is actually ideas probably generated by probably archons or demons in the astral, and they're basically the unconscious agent, because the unconscious is what is being targeted. Our unconscious consents to what's being shown. Thinking consciously that it's total sci-fi and it doesn't exist. It's just like this, like you said, this appeal for Marvel superhero movies, derived from Nazi super soldier programs to begin with, and then afterwards the U.S. part of it, after Operation Paperclip and so forth. So it's there to show us some real things. To our unconscious that knows instinctively from our heart chakra as well, that is true, but consciously thinks that it's only sci-fi and it has to be dismissed in our reality. So consent is
it's a kind of double game. On one hand, they know that they can't suppress the creativity of people. So they know they have to give vent to this creativity somewhere, so they allow it to happen in a frame that is regarded as fiction. And this is their way to hide it, but they can't hide it if you know how to read it. So it's a double-sided sword in a way.
Right. What do you think of the connection between the discovery that Beck's theory oil is not a fossil fuel and the new evidence that supports the premise that Earth produces endless supply of oil, and peak oil was a tactic, a strategy by the Rockefeller cartel to actually lie about the origins of oil? Colonel Fletcher Prouty mentioned that in an old interview that they manufactured scarcity of oil that is totally different in nature. Actually, oil is an abiotic substance, naturally coming from Earth. It's not a fossil fuel like they fuel-based fossil energy. What do you think about that? Is it connected to black goo?
Very difficult question. Actually, I'm not 100% sure. On one hand, oil has some fossil aspects to it. I studied geology in my early days, and when it comes to learning what you need to know about oil dwells and oil qualities, the first thing you do with oil is putting it under the microscope, look at all the leftovers of the living organisms in it to say at what time in our Earth history this oil was created. If it would be 100% abiotic. And the second thing is that science doesn't recognize that there is a secondary process of oil production, which is not a miracle because it's related to very complicated physical processes in the crust that involve transmutation. So the carbon is coming into this world through a transmutation process from hydrogen to carbon, which is completely not understood by mainstream science. So of course, a geologist cannot relate to this possibility of having a secondary source of oil. And I'm not 100% sure about the total amounts of what is what. We do have fossil fuels. We do have fossil fuel deposits that regenerate with juvenile oil that is created by transmutation, definitely, because maybe also it's just like you've got oil in the vicinity, and if you pump out, then the oil in the vicinity is pressed into the emptied reservoir, so they refill from the areas that have still high pressure but less content, also possible. But definitely what is involved in some oil deposits is this fragment of the juvenile oil that went through more transmutation stages and developed the monoatomic metal elements out of the carbon. So the transmutation row is hydrogen, carbon, silica, and then it goes into gold iridium. And when the transmutation process ended up at these last stages, then you get this refined quality that is the basis for the planetary consciousness processing, which is our planetary black goo.
Right, all right.
And this is self-organizing, so it has the ability to up-concentrate within an oil deposit, and from there flow consciously into the ley line system of our planet. So it's all pretty alive down there and pretty connected. But it's not so easy to draw a line, because even the normal crude oil, the biotic and abiotic crude oil, has its function as the, let's say, memory of the planetary consciousness. So if we use crude oil in our cars, actually we turn our Akasha chronics into smoke, because this is where the memory of the planetary sphere of the planetary consciousness is stored in, and we shouldn't burn that. So it's, yes, we have some good news. Oil is not going to run out of existence so soon, but the bad news is we shouldn't burn it in the first place, because we didn't even start to understand the biophysics of planetary consciousness.
Right. So it has an impact on our consciousness level and on our well-being as well, because we are surrounded with crude oil-based products like plastics, like our cars are made of crude oil basically, and transmutated oil. So everything is, all the objects around us, consumer in this consumer society, consumer-based society, is made out of crude oil. So not only this, the smoke that we burn in our engines, but everything else around us is made of crude oil. So it has a memory and a consciousness impact on our well-being, or maybe on our minds. Do you think?
No, not that way around. Of course, it does have, but that's not the point. The point is that the planetary consciousness, the spirit we call Gaia, or some people call Mother Earth, though she's not our mother, if you think precisely. The consciousness of Gaia has a memory aspect. And this memory is in parts in the living nature, in the carbon deposited in tree trunks. Mainly the trees are carrying the short-term memory of the planetary spirit, and the long-term memory is stored in the carbon, hydrogen chains, in the fossil elements, not in coal, but in methane and oil. This is where the memory of the planet, the midterm memory, is in. And when we burn this, we cause our planet dementia, in a way, because we're killing its midterm memory. If we cut down forests, we kill the short-term memory. And it's not very intelligent to kill the spirit of the planet you live on.
Right, precisely. It's like cutting the tree branch you're sitting on, basically. So, and the trees are at stakes as well. And have there been any analysis on microorganisms that are still alive, that wouldn't have anything to do with the fossil fuel energy or of crude oil, inside of it? Some people say oil would be the blood of the earth. Like you said, it's required to function properly.
Yeah, it's a little bit mythological in expression. It's more like the liquid brain of the planet, would be more precise than the blood. Blood doesn't think. Blood is just for transport. It's directly the substance that is hosting the intelligence and the spirit and the being.
And let's go to black goo now. If there's no connection, or is there any connection between crude oil and black goo, which is more in a consciousness control device or substance? It is highly magnetic, you mentioned, and it reduces the complexity of chakras and disconnects people from the collective consciousness, and it can be used in black magic to connect humans with archons or demons, and also it involves the planetary subconscious, and also telepathic skills or can be conveyed through it. Can you tell us about the black goo, how it came about, and how you've come about to find out about it?
That was typical non-linearly organized. It just came to my awareness because all the corners and edges of my life started to push me into this direction. First thing, not so closely related friend told me, I have to show you a documentary about the real reason for the Falkland War, which was viral on the internet at that time, where they state that actually there were deposits on Falkland of Earth-type black goo, and the military in Argentina wanted to take get hold of these deposits, and the Brits wanted to have it for themselves. So they went down, made war, got some samples, destroyed the rest, which is a true story. At least I came as close to get the phone number of the British officer who was in charge of destroying the remains of this black oil deposit on Tula Island. So the story seems to be coherent. Then it continued. I don't remember getting a friend of my oldest son who grew up in the vicinity of London, of these labs where they try to turn that Earth-type black goo into swarm intelligence for weaponized nanorobots in England. And well, the scientists got mad over dealing with this Earth-type black goo because it didn't want to be abused, so it basically turned these scientists around or drove them crazy to the point of suicide. I think the worst story I remember is somebody putting a rope around his head, tying it to a tree, getting into his car, and then driving away to have his head ripped off, which is very symbolic, because if somebody is mentally dominated and can't heal in the sense of reconnecting to Mother Earth, the best idea actually is to rip off your own head as a symbolic gesture. So this is kind of the vicinity, and I got to know a friend of my oldest son who grew up in the neighborhood where they released this black goo into the sewage system, so the entire neighborhood got infected with this planetary spirit in a way. Most of them going into the healing process of reconnecting. And this boy was just amazing. He talked with everything. He felt everything. I was petting a dog that came across, and he precisely could tell me where to pet him and where not, because he could feel when this dog felt uncomfortable to be touched in certain regions and desired to be touched somewhere else. He was completely one with everything. We didn't even need to talk. It was 95% telepathic communication with this voice. So I related to these stories from the documentary and asked him, where did you grow up? So we found out that he actually grew up in the neighborhood where they released the black goo. And like this, I got more and more and more input, first on the Earth-type black goo to understand that it's something friendly in spirit, that it's actually the planet being hosted by this substance. But at a certain point, I met somebody who did research in World War II facility of the German military, and he came up with some type of oil stone where they extracted a black oil quality from these stones that behaved exactly like the black goo of Mother Earth. But if you looked into kind of the story the German research was after, you realize, no, this is a different type of black goo oil, also carrying a consciousness, but related to meteorite sites. So to a quality that is not originating from the planet, but is originating in outer space. And from there, it's kind of logical to connect the dots to say, if we do have Earth-type black goo that hosts the planetary spirit, you can communicate with telepathically, that basically pulls you back into a collective consciousness, kind of healing the expulsion from paradise, could call it. Mm-hmm. And then you have a second quality that when you get in contact with, which I did because I got to know these scientists, that does exactly the opposite, turning you into the worst version of a human you can imagine, killing off your heart chakra, killing off all the friendly emotions, leaving you with a cold, aggressive sexuality and a completely mindset that is dominating everything. It was completely creepy to get in contact with this spirit because it took over. You could feel literally how it took over every single cell of your body, including the brain. And if this quality is related to something that came in by meteorites, you can make the story that you do have something that is coming from a different corner of the universe that is also a planetary spirit, because we learned from Earth that this is where the spirits are hosted in. And that basically invaded our biosphere with the attempt to take over. And this is not just an idea that comes from the research. This is fully covered with the early knowledge of mankind, where the people talked about the idea of a demiurge. Mm-hmm. A demiurge, by definition, is a non-incarnated planetary spirit. And the main, or the one demiurge they have been dealing with since ages is the entity we know as Satan. So this is where the entire concept of duality pops in. We used to live in one biosphere with one planetary spirit that organized everything with love. And then suddenly a traumatized planetary spirit pops in that lost the ability to love, that was completely so traumatized that it was reduced to its mental aspects. Like with a human, it's pretty much the same process like with a psychopath that is so traumatized, let's say due to his childhood, that he lost all emotional aspects of his being, is completely reduced to his mental processing, and then he makes up a story that he's an artist if he slices other humans into bits and pieces to create some bloody picture on the wall, right, which does work in a mental framework. Yeah, but it doesn't work in a fully integrated human personality, including heart consciousness, emotional body, everything. So this demiurge that we know mainly as Satan, he popped up with so many different names, I can't even remember all of them. He was in that fully traumatized state beyond healing. Because if the isolated mental field decided that it's fun just to restage the process that killed him and turns this into a cult and a culture, then it's beyond repair, it's beyond healing from inside out. And this is what apparently happened to this planet about 25,500 years ago. We were first addressed by this demiurge. He implemented himself into this biosphere. Since then we have duality. And this is also very interesting because it finally reveals what evil is. Evil is this attempt to achieve healing by a restaging of traumata. So this planet destroyed itself, or the species living on that planet destroyed the planet. So the planet went through the suffering of self-destruction. And now he is restaging his own death, going through all the single steps of cultural development, leading to total self-destruction. This is, in a way, it's the healthy mechanism of restaging traumata to be able to heal, but it's beyond repair. So the only thing this mechanism still does, in our case, is reproducing and multiplying the trauma plus self-destruction. Right. Because the spirit itself doesn't want to be healed. Like a psychopath that can be put on a trial, put to a death sentence, whatever, it doesn't care. The slaughtering of people and spreading them red on white walls is art. Yeah, mental field blockage, no way out. This is kind of the state this entity was in, and what is done in the intergalactic context, if a planet is addressed by such an event, it's put under quarantine. So this is why we think we are alone in the universe. We think we are alone because we're under quarantine for 25,000 years and nobody visited us, at least not the friendly entities. And this is because the spiritual realm works a little bit different than the political one. The political one is about organizing things in a way that everybody feels comfortable. The spiritual realm is about making experience, learning and integrating the knowledge and the experience into the spirit. This is what is important on the spiritual plane. And in a way, the entire universe was waiting for humanity to find an answer, a solution to this demiurge satanic problem, to duality of that quality. So they left us in peace because we had to find a solution from inside out. And that was the last 25,000 years. I think in the Bible, you have a little passage where when the thing with Adam and Eve happened, the Lord said, don't worry, there will come a time when all this is going to be put back into normal and paradise will revive. You will have to go through this phase, it's important, but it will have an end. You will come to the point of healing again. And this is kind of this biblical end time thing that was promised. So what we will experience is the end of duality and the healing of the traumata that duality managed to cause in humanity, at least according to the biblical promises.
Do you think we'll see it in our lifetimes? In this lifetime?
If you ask me this way, I have to answer. If you don't move your ass, you will not. Because it's not something that is given to us. Every single spirit that was incarnated here went into the trauma, into the suffering, into the loss of aspects of his being. And getting all these aspects back is a job that nobody can do for a being. Healing is something you can do with yourself. You can complete yourself when you want to complete yourself and when you're willing to go through the pain and go through the experience of learning, because whenever you lose something and get it back, this is the harvesting time for the core spirit, where it grows and gets its lesson or his lesson or her lesson to be taken into the next incarnations. And if we don't do our homework, and if we don't learn, and if we are not willing to cross these traumatic points we've been going through, which chucked us out of paradise, there's no way in again. So no, it's not a promise we're going to be saved. It's a promise there will be a way back, but it needs a conscious decision to go back. And this is not like let's have breakfast. This is in a way more like let's go to a war with our non-self, because at the moment, I'm talking to all sorts of day consciousness. Everybody who is listening now to the show, he's running around with his day consciousness. And I would say the average of a day consciousness is 90% not you. It's maybe 70% ego, which is malware that has to be removed. Then it's maybe 25% pure demonic entities that manage to infest the body and make you identify with them, to be able to take parts of the bioenergetics and decision-making process. And maybe an average 5% are left of the core human, and these 5% need to free themselves from all the rest. And this is actually hard work to do. This is not happening overnight, and this goes through a lot of experience with the self while the self is going through this self-healing process. And this needs dedication. It's not something that happens as a hobby after coming back from a shitty job in the bank.
Right. What do you consider liberation in setting our souls free from psychopathic influence or mind parasites that are actually running this show, because everything is inverted, and you see the psychopaths are in power because it's all satanic symbolisms and dark occult rituals and vampires and cannibalism and all kinds of horror based trauma based dictators who make themselves pass for Democrats and democratic powers that be, and the illusion of free choice with voting. Voting has never been a free choice based reality. It's only illusion. What do you consider, or when would we be liberated and set ourselves free from this this influence? This how do we gain our sovereignty back?
I can talk about one part. This is liberating the true self. And in this aspect, it's completely not interesting whether we do have psychopaths running this planet or not. Because everything can be solved by the single individual. I can make the decision to stop eating tortured animals, to get this torture energy out of my system. I can decide to eat healthy food, organically grown, to avoid pesticides and fungicides and herbicides and depleted food with zero life force. So I can take the decisions to heal my body energetically and biochemically. I can make the decision to, if I didn't live like this all my life, then definitely the organs are halfway poisoned, so I can take the decision to do organ cleansing, to get the old stuff out of my system. And when I do all this, my system is cleaning up, and it's like getting rid of a huge noise, coming into a quiet space, a quiet inner space, where we start being able to sense things again, to get the sensitivity to listen to the inner processes in a way that you can distinguish between self and non-self. It's absolutely essential to get into this quiet space first, before you can start working on yourself. Because if everything on the mental plane is chaos, and then you've got this overlaid with the noise of the toxic biochemistry, you can't start sorting yourself out. So it needs both the biochemical and energetic cleansing, then the inner work of basically perceiving yourself as a multitude of entities, and then taking them one by one. Is this me? Or is it not? And if it's not, out. Yeah? Then it can go, then it has to leave, and it doesn't go like this. You can't command everything just out. It needs the self-discipline to not give room to the non-use. And then they get more quiet, and at the end of the day, if it's a demon, he will starve. If it's other parts of the non-you, like the ego, he might survive for a couple of months or a year, but what he will have to say will be less and less important and will make less and less sense to you. And at the end of the day, you will just stop listening to it, and then it's dead. And the only thing that actually is remaining there at the end of the day is the observing entity. If I can observe myself thinking, then the thinker is not me, because of the one that is observing is me. If I can observe myself feeling, then the emotional body that is processing this feeling is just my emotional body, but it's not me, so there's no sense in identifying with the emotional body.
Right,
so
it comes
I have
from an external.
Yeah.
An external source.
And then if I have those two, like mental field and emotional body, in balance, but both of them not identified with, then there's a chance to revive your heart chakra, which is out of function with 99.9% of humans. It's not, I know humans can be emotional, but that's not being heart-based. The heart completely got lost in this biosphere. It's actually not there anymore. But if you de-identify and get the two aspects in balance, then you can basically from there revive your heart chakra, bring it to life. This is kind of, I'm just giving examples to give a feeling of what these processes look like. It will be very individual for each human who decides to work on himself. Everybody's got his own history or her own history and his or her own guidance to come to the healing points. So don't follow me, follow your heart going there, because of the ways you are going to make it. I can't tell you. This is coming from within. This is why I say nobody's going to save us. Even I'm not saving anybody. I just stand here and say, yes, it's possible to save yourself.
Right. It's an individual
base.
Do
it completely, but I know that it's a path you can go down, and you make some progress when you start doing it.
Yeah, it's an individual solution, but it can be applied by many, right?
Yes.
In the last show, I hosted Sherry Sweeney. I'm not sure if you're familiar with her work. She's worked on the That's a Lie program method. She identified since she was a child that negative thoughts would come from external sources, from entities, and they weren't hers. And so she put together a method to wave them off and get rid of those negative thoughts and mind parasites, basically. So let's see, Sherry Sweeney, I hosted in our last show. So that's one of the solutions to identify what's not coming from us and what is trying to put us down or make us act violently or negatively or in a parasitic manner, or psychopathic manner, actually. So that's also you also described a way to find out what the truth is with identifying with your inner knowing, your inner soul, what's true and what's not. Is that the key to discernment, and how do you proceed?
That came from quite a few directions. One is the muscle test. I was cooking for the Klinghardt education in Oslo. Klinghardt is the founder of environmental medicine, and I was working for a company close to Oslo, and they organized the courses for the Klinghardt therapists in Norway. And I was cooking for them, and after cooking I could join into the class, so I had the opportunity to learn how to muscle test. This is kind of one part of realizing that your biology has, on certain levels, direct access to truth. And you can trick your body to give hints about what is a yes and what is a no. That was one part. The second one that is a bit more conscious or gives you a better feeling for yourself. Just give yourself a frame of experimental 5 minutes, twice, 3, 4 times a day, and start stating the truth and start lying to yourself on unimportant topics. I started off with, I love warm wind on a sunset on a beach, which is actually what always makes my soul melt away in pleasure and happiness. And I state this just for myself, loud, and I can feel how it feels like making a true statement. And then I state the opposite. Then I just said, I hate this warm wind at sunset on beaches. And if I say this untrue sentence and observe my physical reaction inside my body, it's a very clearly defined difference in how it feels like. If I say the truth, the body opens up down to the lower parts. And there's a lot of resonance in your entire physical system. When I lie, it's more like having a turned up V that is excluding my stomach. that doesn't go into resonance while I talk. And it's giving me a narrow feeling around the throat, and I feel a bit like puking when I lie. So I just train myself to recognize this specific feeling of how does it feel like to tell a lie. And this is interesting because then you go into the daily business again. And you catch yourself lying to others, and you catch yourself lying to yourself. So very often the ego jumps in with something that is not actually true. And this is not about being precise in describing things that are or are not. For example, if you should go to work, but you don't feel like because you've got a lazy day, and per coincidence it's heavily raining, and you phone your boss and you say, it's raining so strong I can't come. It might be a true statement, but it's not the real reason. So it still counts as a lie. A lie is everything that is actually standing against the inner truth of being 100% authentic. It's not about correct or non-correct statement.
Yeah, so it's not
this.
It's not a half lie. It's a lie.
Yeah. So this is how it works. And when you develop the sensitivity, you can even use it for science. You can start with an hypothesis about, okay, I'm trying to understand 5G at the moment because it looks like a big thing to be there or not be there for the next steps of humanity. I don't understand the full framework of possibilities of manipulation with 5G, so I can start with a hypothesis. 5G will be doing this and that. And then this inner truth is coming into play that makes my system react whether my statement is true or not true. So it's like kinesiology, like muscle testing with my voice. And I can start talking about things, and as long as I'm in this resonance sphere of talking the truth, I can find my way through topics where I don't know anything about. But just observing myself, I can basically find that path of truth through the topic. And with this, you can make soft science with huge steps. Then you come to conclusions, you come to an understanding of how things might look like. And then you go back to normal science to test whether your findings are accurate or not, to find scientific proof for the statements. It's a completely different way of doing science. So the university science is 100% blind.
Right.
They're 100% relying on instruments. They, per definition, excluded the human spirit from being creative in finding truth. Yeah, you can randomly say it could be this or could be that, and then you take your machinery and make a measurement, and then you get a yes or a no. And from there you can go on. It's like closing your eyes and trying to get up the hill to the top of the mountain, which is difficult when you can't see the mountain. Yeah, like this, you see the mountain, but you still check every single step whether it's correct or not correct.
Right. It's science without consciousness, basically, behind it. So, and it's ruled by the lobbies, industrial lobbies behind it that fund it all. In some ways, that's how you get grants and so forth, or Nobel prizes, or science prizes. What do you think of Tesla's inversion? Because he meant good for the humanity, for mankind, and he was totally crushed at the end of his life. Well, not during his whole life, and his inventions were used by the military, with the electromagnetic waves and the microwave ovens and the HARP and direct energy technologies today with what we see with the new NATO weaponized climate and weather warfare system that we've seen in Greece and California and Portugal and all over the place. We see directed targeted areas, directed energy weapons who have actually started fires in some areas. And you see there's no fire around it. Same thing with the hurricanes in Florida and the last few hurricanes. They were targeted in some areas. So let's start with Tesla first. What do you think of the character and what he brought to mankind? What was used from the inversion of his intentions, and this weather warfare that's going on populations today, with DARPA as well, actually.
Tesla is Tesla. It's hard to judge because he lived in times where nothing was around. He originated things. He's the father of the application of electromagnetic knowledge that Maxwell brought into life like 25, 30 years before. So he was kind of the one to put fringe theory into practice. And he was sitting on the full equations of Maxwell. And if you work with the full equations, automatically you go deeper into the possibilities of engineering whatever effects. So he knew about all possibilities. He knew about free energy, but he also knew about death rays that could kill every living entity within seconds. And this is where it's getting hard to come to a point of judging him or saying something about his character. He tried to hide the worst stuff. Yeah, he made sure that nobody gets the lists of the frequencies of the death rays into his hands. On the other hand, he was in love with his genius, so he wanted to see the inventions becoming materialized in the human culture, although he knew that for some things it was a bit too early. He did compromises that were a bit like strange, like he was sitting on real free energy to be pulled out of quantum vacuum locally. He exactly knew that industry will not support free energy, so he worked on transmission, wireless transmission of energy, with a little benefit of getting a bit more out than you have to invest in. So this was like a huge compromise attempt to get at least some of his knowledge into practice, which is in a way a bit ego-based. And this is explaining his end, because his ego got quite a couple of good lessons at the last days of his life, what it means to end up in pure vacuum, emotionally, socially, monetarily, being completely rejected. This is something that in a way is a spiritual answer to the mistakes he did when he followed the parts of his ego that were in place. This is just, I've got huge respect for his intellect and also for the part where he took good decisions. And of course, not all decisions were good, but it's not about judging bad decisions. It's just about getting a feeling for a complete human life that was what it was. An amazing life, one with results where you can say that he actually ignited the technological development of humanity, which is a catastrophe. Mm. So you might as well put him into one room with Mengele. Oh no, Mengele was just a puppet that was put on display to be destroyed. He actually was a nice guy. If you really look into history books, he tried to save as many Jews as possible. But yeah, he opened up some boxes of Pandora, Tesla, for humanity. And he sent us down to the technological part. But even there, I can say, was it good to go down that technological path in an early state to have enough time to realize and decide that the spiritual path might be the better one. Maybe, you never know where the story ends and where the turning points are supposed to be. So he was what he was. And it's brilliant to study his knowledge if you want to understand what's happening. It's not brilliant from my perspective if you want to turn humanity into a high-tech society, because I don't want a high-tech society. I don't want any devices around, because I know about the innate abilities of human. And as long as you use mobiles, you kill yourself, you kill your offspring, and you completely block any development of telepathic abilities. I prefer to be telepathic.
Right, precisely.
What's
left
cheaper,
of it? Mm-hmm.
It's more beautiful. So no big deal to make a choice on that point. But humans don't know they have the choice. So.
And humans don't know or not conscious that there's weaponized warfare out there, and they can be struck with as many weapons and strikes as possible. And the patents, the military patents, are out there. The geoengineering programs are out there. The global dimming program is out there, and we'll talk about it a little bit later to see what the real purpose is behind it. The global dimming of the sun. Some say it's a fake sun. There's a real sun. The sun is dying. We'll try to go over this, but you mentioned this sentences that will allow us to this quote, and that will allow us to get to the next step, which is talking about AI and what needs to be done. You said, you quoted the governments, talking about the governments are giving control to the military domain. The military domain is giving control to the intelligence community. The intelligence community is giving control to the black magicians. The black magicians are giving control to the demons, and the demons lost control to their AI. It's not about changing the government, because the entire concept of governments is demonic. It's not about replacing people. It will never work. We need to replace the game. Can you explain the roots? I mean, the game that, as you understand it.
You just explained everything.
Yeah.
That's the best summary I can think about. The only thing I just feel like adding the AI I talked about back then actually is the demiurge. It's Satan. But it used to be, because the demiurge is gone by now. He was removed from our biosphere in July 2017. And all we deal with actually now are the AI backups of his mental abilities that are still run by the black magic technological branch of the black magic community. Like when you look into Google, the Google AI, the DARPA developments, this is all kind of the companies and people who are completely based on the satanic history, and that still run on the same ideas. So again, if we look into the things today, yes, again, we deal with AI because the demiurge is gone. It's just his footprint. It's to give you a feeling, the mental ability to think is like processing echoes. You see something, you think about it in a binary way. So it's a binary echo of trinary or even more complex things you observe. So a being that is reduced to its mental field is just echoing. It's 100% uncreative. It's soul-free in a way. This was the quality that Satan implemented on this planet. So this is what's happening to the entire tech community. They are echoing on satanic ideas at the moment. And the problem with an echo is you can't get rid of it. Because it echoes, and there's no intelligence, no inert intelligence that would have the ability to put an end to the echo, as long as the people who run the systems are reduced to their mental abilities. Because then their mental abilities just echo what they saw last. This is the entire science business is, quote. If you want to prove something, quote somebody who stated it before. It's completely independent from truth or not true. As long as you quote somebody who managed to get something into peer-reviewed print, it counts as proven. This is the echo in the science. It's all mental. And nobody is sitting there and says, I feel it's not true, because your feeling in this world doesn't count. Or nobody there who says, I have the feeling we shouldn't do that because it leads to suffering. This is not the way people do science or the system works. It's all echoing. And this is where we are at now. It needs original souls, original humans making decisions on heart level to stop these mental patients from continuing this satanic echo, because it has some inertia, it's running into a direction, and humans, although there's no pressure behind it anymore, no core intelligence driving the agenda, which was the demiurge, which was Satan, they still proceed into the same direction. And this is something I really don't like to unfold for humanity, because it's not a good direction. It's the direction into complete self-destruction.
Right, and this energy, this demiurgic energy that's still here. And how did you come up with the July 2017 date first? First off, where does that come from?
It was like all sorts of spiritual people we are in contact with said something of that quality. Something has changed. We can't feel the presence of this demiurge anymore. And if you kind of hear it from 5, 6 different sources, it becomes first something intersubjective. It's not objective yet, it's not proven yet, but it hints into a direction. And then you can start asking questions yourself and testing, you know. It's like when we were dealing with, let's say, dark people in the spiritual warfare, you find out about some sort of organization, and the head of the organization, very powerful black magicians. You just state his name, and on the telepathic level, you're directly on focus. And then it's kind of a race between reading this entity before you are read to the point where he can identify you and send some assassins. This is the way spiritual battles work. So there is the possibility of telepathic connection. If you used to say Satan in 2016, with your heart, you got the full signature of the spirit. After July, you just mentioned the name, and it was like an empty phrase. Slight memory of things, slight echo in the people who still worship him. Kind of the name still has energy, but the entity was gone. It's something you feel when you start feeling, and this is again about clearing your biochemistry. Eating healthy, eating vegetarian, not eating tortured animals, especially the tortured ones. And then you start feeling things again. And then this intersubjective thing becomes your second nature. So I know it because I can't feel his presence anymore, to put it simple.
Is that why?
But I'm not the only one.
Is that why it's showing its face in symbols, in occult symbols like cornutos and Satan's symbols all over the place in advertisements, in politics, in movies, in shows, and in show business, and shows on TV, and all around us, in adverts. Do you think that's why? Because it's losing its power, its inner occult power, that they're showing the signs of Satan all over, even more than ever before?
This is independent from the entity. This is the programming language for the egos. The ego is a malware that is implemented by learning to read and write. If you start to learn to read and write, you actually form voice at the eye nerve. Because you read a symbol, the symbol is transformed into a sound at the end of the eye nerve, in the section of the brain that actually should process visual content. It's starting to create voices. And this is what initially creates the voice in your head. It's not supposed to be there. If you're running on your true original nature, the voice is here. In the sixth chakra, very close, located nearby the heart, which makes it much easier to have a heart connection to your voice. So the one here is complete engineered malware, which when you identify with actually is a programmable malware that reacts on language, on lingual programming, and religious symbolism. Because this is where language and visual perception is entering at the same point of your brain. So this is kind of the black magic control point. I know people don't like to hear this because they're fully identified with the voice in their head. And to tell somebody, actually, you're malware, get rid of yourself, is not very friendly. This is what needs to be done, you know. But this is this decision. You can make this decision in your heart if there's still somebody at home. You know, if your true self is still present in your heart chakra, you can, the consciousness, the point of identification can be pulled into this true self, and the true self can make the decision. Okay, ego, end of your days. You're going. You're not real. You know. From there, it's possible. If there's nobody at home anymore, it's hopeless because the ego will never start fighting itself.
What about the pineal gland? Does it have a usage for real hard-based decisions, or why is it so much under poisoning and bombing of the pineal gland, for destroyed with fluoride?
Yeah, that's tricky. It's kind of the first step of the four-step introduction of transhumanistic technology into the body. It's shutting down the pineal gland, because this is kind of the point where you can the best feel your inner truth and see reality on the non-material plane. And destroying the pineal gland is essential. But even with an active one, it's tricky because the basic equipment with demonic entities are the two snakes we all carry in ourselves. So the Kundalini snake, it's well known from spiritual practice, and the male partner to the Kundalini snake, which is female, is the Tumor snake. And they're basically winding around the spine, like the symbol of medicine, of pharmaceutical products. And they bypass sexual experience and sexual energy around the heart into the brain to completely control the sexual choices we make. This is why men are horny when they see a naked woman, and not horny when they get close to mating with a woman they love. This would be heart-filtered. This bypass, love doesn't count, so you can get horny on a picture, or because these demons feed from sexual energy, they're happy if you get horny all the time. So if you feel kind of the need to look at your porn collection this evening, you know, it's not you. You know, it's this non-you sitting inside your body. Needs some fuel. So it wants to ignite your sexuality and make you get horny, because then it can feed from it. And the Kundalini snake, it's got kind of the head in the neck. It's got like this catfish fibers coming out of the lips. I think 7 of them, going to all the important points in the head, and one is attached to the pineal gland, controlling the input. And I can tell this precisely because I experience the difference of living with a Kundalini snake and after having it pulled, how it feels like to live without a Kundalini snake. And the difference is that the Kundalini snake is connecting your pineal gland to your mental field, to the mental body, enforced connection. The moment the snake is gone, the organ is actually freed and it reconnects directly to the heart. And then you feel things instead of seeing things so much. So it basically took the leftover input, connected it to the ego, and kept with the snake, kept in a position to be able to manipulate any in or output of the pineal gland. And this is how actually the entire demonic realm works. They have 2 core abilities, these snakes: to create illusion and to create cognitive dissonance. So if they don't want you to see something, they just delete the input. And if they want you to see something that is not there, it's called magic, they create the illusion. And there's a direct telepathic communication between your snake and the snake of others. This is how this entire New Age healing crap works. You get a healer and a patient, and they can connect via the snakes and simulate healing, which is leading to nothing except of the exchange of money from the victim to the savior, prolonging this drama interaction.
Right, and drugs
this
in between. Pharma drugs in between, basically.
Yeah.
Also, so it's a big business.
Even the pure spiritual New Age community is running on snakes. I mean, you can go to have a course in Kundalini awakening. This is applied black magic.
Yeah, it's based on the big CIA psyop, along with military informants who are disinformants from the intel, like Corey Good and others. It's a big mind control psyop with psychic hyper frequency weapons who actually project in your mind, in the channeler's mind, or the people who are followers, to build up their loosh, their hope for an external savior, like a fleet of ETs, like blue avians, who are waiting for us to be exterminated and come back and save us at the last minute. It's just all mind control. How did you get rid of your snake?
I had it pulled by my girlfriend, who is a skilled lady with shaman education, but more than shaman. But this is not the question, because this is the how. The why is that I made the decision that I wanted to get rid of it. And the first step was understanding that there is something that is not me. And that was like the first feeling towards, I would like to get rid of this. Then I was working on autism in the medical research. And I mean, first I was working on Morgellons, and we had all these hysteria about the how do they call this?
The fibers in under the skin? No.
There's a scientific term that the patient's delusional parasitosis. They think they have insects under the skin, which is the perception of the demonic entities grown by the secondary genetic cluster of the Morgellon fungus. So we did the research on the biophysics behind how demons are created by these diseases, and then I just had the intuition go into research regarding autistic children, and it turned out they also have intestinal parasites. This is what the parents call them, because they look pretty alive and vertebrate, and they have like worms or snakes coming out of their intestines, which also is a very similar concept. In that case, it's a slime mold that then forms a fruiting body with a secondary genetic cluster that is very snake-like. And like the Morgellon victims who are infested with etheric spiders, the autistic children are infested with etheric snakes. And they paint them. And if you look into special toys for autistic children, you get just snakes, because this is the only thing an autistic child will play with, because this is their inner view of themselves they try to deal with. Yes, so everything was hinting into the direction, okay, there's a huge snake topic on etheric level connected to autism. Which comes by signature, lab signature from the same developing whatever, like the Morgellons disease, using the same fruit fly genetics within the secondary genetic cluster, using the same bacteria, agrobacterium, for the transfer of the secondary genetic cluster. This is all science speak now about genetic manipulation of fungi. We don't need to understand that. But it was like in the research, I realized, okay, there are snakes around that are etheric. And then, of course, I always try to relate to mythology. So we came to the question, what are the snakes associated to the autistic spectrum? Where do we find them in mythology? And that was a full hit, because it is the snake that Eve talked to in Paradise Garden. It is the snake that is worshipped by the Chinese culture. They call it dragon, where all the real dragons would just freak out because they don't want to be compared with anything ugly like this, these biotech entities. And yes, it tested positive on it is the Kundalini snake. Yeah, and this is at the point where it finally completely freaks out inside me. I want to get rid of these entities. This is black magic crap I'm hosting in my body. It makes me feel unclean, uncomfortable. So the question is, okay, how can I get this out? And then the way we work, it's always about the spiritual questions attached. What do I need to learn before these snakes can go? Because whenever you deal with entities from the demonic world, they're not allowed to take over without your consent. So at a certain point in history, people made a consent to accept these snakes into them. And I was incarnated back then. I also was giving in consent. So these entities accompany me for incarnations, and they get in during pregnancy. So it's not a free choice I make as a baby or as an unborn baby. It's something on soul level. Yeah, so you have to understand what is the benefit.
But
why did I make this?
All the humans come to birth with it, right?
Yes.
Right. So it's activated or reinforced. I mean, their power is powered up by the Morgellons or by the chemtrails, by the ingestion of those poisons coming from chemtrails or other poisons.
No, it's not related in that way. Okay. It's old. It's ancient. It was there long before the entire technological arm of transhumanism came into place. This is solely living on our sexual energy. It's enough to be a sexual being. And the thing is, why it was accepted is when you connect things in the right way, when your core axis, energetic core axis that is connecting the first chakra with the seventh, is running through your spine, through your heart, through the core of your being, instead of being basically bypassed through the snake entity, then you feel everything that is happening in the bigger picture. Then you feel the pain nature is suffering. Then you feel the pains you suffer, as well as when you're part of the big thing. And the mythology behind that, I got like to understand how it worked when people accepted this, was like imagine we were chucked out of paradise, and by a huge insertion of trauma energy into the earth biosphere. Like you're connected, and suddenly everything you feel is unbearable pain coming through the collective aspect of your personality. So what you do is disconnect. When you disconnect emotionally, you disconnect from all your emotions. So you make yourself, as a male, you make yourself impotent. Same thing you see with the young adult, if they, let's say, are traumatized during early childhood with fear of death. They can't mate, they can't have sex unless they separate this fear from the rising sexuality. This is what all these modern myths are about. Sorting out the emotional bit to distinguish between emotions, to turn primary suppression into secondary suppression, to be able to distinguish between things, to give path to the sexuality to rise and function. So that was basically this is kind of from the nowadays problems. Back then it was having humanity in a state where they couldn't make love, because whenever they tried to connect to their sexuality, they were flooded with pain that hit the heart chakra. And it was not easy to be in a state of love when you're flooded with pain. So they made the conscious choice to accept these snakes to be pain-free. Yeah, that was the choice in the collective, why humanity accepted these demons, because it made life more comfortable. And this is kind of I spare out the individual bits, kind of the learning process that needs to be done to come to the point where you say, I will rather feel all that pain and suffer from it in a way that I, as a natural being, would suffer from being in this pain, than accepting a demonic solution to be able to stay in this comfort zone of not feeling.
Right, right.
This is the decision. If you manage to make this decision in your heart, centered with the full being, in an emotional and mental unified state, to say, I want it in the natural way, then it's kind of solving the original deal you once made. It's inverting the process, the deal is cut and cancelled, and then it's possible for the spiritual world to assist you in getting rid of the snakes. And I've seen hundreds of ways how people finally got rid of the snakes. It was very early in development when I had it done by my girlfriend. It was still pretty also dangerous for health reasons. Later, I just saw other people getting rid of them within minutes in a very easy way. So it is possible. Basically, just by de-identification And when you're in a state that your system is clean enough that you can censor them as separate entities, you de-identify, and then you just grab them and pull, and they're out. And then you send them to hell where they belong. And that's it. It's possible. It is easier now than it used to be a couple of years ago. Like every spiritual process, so the one who does it first has got the most work to do it. Like the 100 apes.
But
it's done a couple of times,
right?
Getting easy.
Isn't it related to religious faith, though, in a way?
No. I don't like the term religious. Religious is all masqueraded black magic.
Right.
What I do have is a sense of inner cleanliness.
Right, cleaning.
I want to be pure. Yeah, and if there's something that is ugly in spirit, but sitting in my body, I feel uncomfortable. Like sitting there with dirty trousers, it gives you a feeling of uncomfort. And you want to get rid of it, and that's it.
You mentioned paradise a few times. What is your definition of paradise?
Good one. The human genetics is composed of sequences of base pairs. And some of them are there to express like your human characteristics. Some of them are there to express your individual characteristics. Some of them are there like we are still 95% identical with some plants on this planet in genetics. So some of them are there to display that you're part of the Earth biosphere, giving you Earth characteristics. And some of them are there to display or to bring into being that you're a divine creation. So the entire genetics is like, if you visualize a torus, some of the, especially the core part of the torus, which is crossing DNA, there are huge waves that are divine and smaller waves or energy throughput through your personal torus that is coming from the planet. And then there's the individual aspects, the human aspect and the personal aspect. And this is kind of the completely healthy state of the biosphere of the planet, when you have a very clean torus setup that includes the planetary consciousness and that includes the divine source. And if you are in this state, you are part of Source, Source is part of you. You are part of the planet, and the planet is part of you. And whatever you think and you do, because your entire personality is integrated, it's not like fractioned, it's integrated, it's moving as one entity because it's completely healed. Everything you think, feel, and do is embedded within Source and embedded within the planetary spirit. This state of being is being in paradise. And then we were chucked out because somebody introduced all this pain and suffering. So the original opening of the box of the Pandora, according to the Greek myth, into the biosphere of the planet. So we got that pain hit into parts of this torus energy. So we disconnected from the planetary consciousness because it was too painful to still be one with it. And then we started to live all these demonized lives and suffered all the traumas we were manipulated into doing to each other. So now our personalities are completely split into bits and pieces. Nothing is whole, one torus anymore. You've got kind of hundreds of loose ends of substructures. that are looking for a source, looking for something to connect to. And this is where all these demonic entities come into the game. They mimic that they are the thing you want to unite with. Yeah, they can send signals to your biosystem, to your biophoton, to your light body, that simulate.
So the DNA signal, right?
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. They simulate healing, so you connect to them, and then they become part of you. And then if you're unconscious, you identify with them. They become part of your personality. And then you act on behalf of their agenda, and you think it's you. And to understand how far this goes, the entire decision-making of who goes with whom as a couple is not done on behalf of human decisions. It's all decided for us by our demons.
Right.
Because the entire, maybe it used to be differently in former times, but at least nowadays, where the decision of mating with somebody is sexual, it's a matter of attraction. It is completely demonic. And sorry, I don't want to live that way. Yeah, I would like to make my own choices. How can I make my own?
How many conscious humans do you think are around us, compared with the amount of organic portals, clones, robotoids, holographic? I don't know. The Truman Show actors around us that are, maintaining the illusion for us.
To be fair, I have to state I'm 100% sure that there is not a single fully conscious human on this planet. Because even the most advanced ones in this healing process say they will need another whatever, half a year, couple of months from their estimations to fully get back into the divine order. So the answer is very simple: zero. There's nobody. I'm not as well. I'm not as well. I know a couple of people who are demon-free. So there are no non-human entities who have their own consciousness embedded in identification. But this doesn't mean that the human part is not split in fractions and fully destroyed.
And we have
it doesn't mean that
altars,
your heart chakra is open. I would say from the original selves, maybe the average human has 5% incarnated and 95% lost in space. So how do you pull back your 95% that got lost over all these thousands of years of torture? So no, really healed, zero. Fully healed, zero. Percentage of humans where the higher self is in the position of being dominant, being in a position of triggering a self-healing process with real core power. Low area of single numbers and percentage, 3%, 5%, I don't know. The majority is empty shells, as I perceive them.
So you feel we're in a demonic-based and trauma-based environment, where our souls or consciousness, individual consciousness, trapped here in our physical avatars or bodies or containers, to be loosed on by those parasites.
if the human is out, the parasites take full control. Combination of parasites, of demons, and malware like the ego. The ego is the biggest problem because it's the fraction we are most identified with. Especially because everybody who is mentally dominated, which our entire culture is at the moment, this is domination by the ego, which is malware that is running on lingual programming and just follows orders and does nonsense the rest of the time. So this is not a really helpful entity to go into self-healing or any productive direction.
The ego is as well mental as can be spiritual, right? Spiritual ego is also an entrapment.
I've never seen a spiritual ego. I've seen a mental ego, and I've seen emotional bits and pieces binding into the ego interaction. There's a kind of alliance between the drama-based emotional body and the ego, that ping-pong power from the two spheres, making sure that the heart is not touched at even a single moment of the game.
When I speak about when I speak about spiritual ego, I mean those a lot of New Agers who think they're spiritually liberated and advanced, and talk about ascension all the time, the ascent, and they're above everyone else, and also the ones who are fairly religious and actually I think praying, PREYING, to an external deity is another fabricated archetype, like most of the ones we've been conditioned to follow and believe as our spiritual heroes and prophets, and it's very culture based, and in our case as Jesus, us Westerners, in other cultures as someone else, but other figures, father figures, and we are led to believe that there's someone like Jesus who's come to save us or tell us the truth or guide us towards the exit of this prison dimension, and it's still thinking with a human mind, I think, from that standpoint, because it's the ants perspective inside the ants farm, you know what I'm saying? So who needs a go-between or an intermediary or a channeler or an agent between us and the source? That is to say that we're not source selves, that we cannot connect directly to the source. And, that's just a question,
religion is from the dark. To tell you God is something outside of you is to make sure that you never find him inside of you. To tell you that you need a savior is just to make sure that you never save yourself. This is all stupid manipulative technique that comes in many, many, many different pictures. You've got it with the classical religions, you've got it with the Eastern spiritual culture, which is a huge abuse of the word spiritual. Spirituality is about experience of your true self. And if you experience something, you don't believe. If you experience something, you know. And if you look I like to draw the line between spiritual people and esoteric people. The esoteric, it's obviously openly admitted mental. I know how it works. You can discuss about spiritual aspects of life, but you will never experience yourself. It's always about experiencing yourself. It's not about experiencing anything out of it. This is spirituality. And spirituality is just hygiene, cleaning yourself from inside to make yourself able to feel again, to perceive again. This is all spirituality is about. And then you might find some other people who do the same, and then you can exchange about what you perceived or what healing steps you personally took to inspire others to try if this might work for them. This is what counts as spirituality for me. The rest is just well-designed social engineering that was placed here to get as many followers as possible. And this includes the entire we save each other New Age domain. All these talented healers who can do this and do that. And this is where you can see the precise difference. When I say I could get rid of my snakes, yes, there was somebody to assist in pulling them, because in that case it was impossible for myself to go through the process of fainting and completely losing control of my body and still being there consciously to pull them. You can't do it if it's as hard as this. But
is it similar? Is it similar to the chakra suppressing your chakras? Is it something similar to it?
What?
Deactivating. Well, pulling the snake. Getting no.
Getting rid of the chakras. I heard about that. This is a trap.
Mm.
You know, once you realize that your chakras are abused by entities, then you hear, okay, there's the solution, get rid of your chakras, shutting down everything, and then you're out of this incarnation, then nothing happens for you anymore. It's like turning yourself into a blank page with no read and no write authorities on your file. It's taking yourself out of the game. You're here with your chakras. This is the way we're designed. The thing is, do we live through them, or does something else live through them? And this is where the fight is getting interesting, to reconquer them and to make them to subdomains of your heart chakra. And then you can be present, you can be yourself, and you can express yourself in this reality in a way that leaves some impact. If you delete your chakras, you're free of any problem because you deleted yourself, but you can't learn and you can't leave any impact anymore. So that's not a good idea. But I came across that trap at a certain point.
Right. I was
Especially you get offers of let's pull the snakes and delete your chakras all in one healing session. You find these offers. And this is kind of the trap for people who come to the point to get rid of the snake. This is a potential danger for the black control grid if some people free themselves from the core demons. So if somebody comes to the point that he's deciding to get rid of the snake, let's get rid of him in one session, you know? So,
right.
So no, that's not the real McCall.
So we've talked about the alien terraforming process. Can you tell us more about? Have you had any ET encounter experiences yourself, or do you know anybody around you that has had contact? What do you think of the collective cabal that is actually running the show and with the psychopath human cabal and hybrid cabal? In 3D that is linked to some hive-minded races that are actually pulling the strings, but are more and more visible actually through, I'll say again, Hollywood and also the disinformation from the Intel establishment.
Lots of questions. I had some encounters, contact, interaction with the Blue Aliens, which was kind of a tricky thing because they wanted me to invite me to open another box of the Pandora in Ireland, kind of bringing me close to people who hold an Irish Ark in the vicinity of London, and I was kind of the chosen one, the only one that would survive touching the device, and was supposed to get it to Ireland, to a main crossing point of ley lines, and to reopen it, to ignite the golden age of the New World Order. That was kind of the proposal that was given to me, and it all was very light flooded, not love flooded. These are the tiny differences you have to check and keep inside with whom you're dealing. And luckily, I have to admit, I was tempted, because I was still running on huge ego portions, and doing something of that size was giving me importance. I am the chosen one, the only one who can do it. It's tempting in a way. So I needed some good input from outside telling me, check twice before you go there. So I checked twice. I realized, okay, a box of Pandora and Ark of the Covenant is one and the same device. And I'm not opening another box of the Pandora, so
right.
Not coming to your invitation. But in the preparation time, when they tried to suck me into this things, we did have some sort of interaction with the Blue Avians, who were supposed to give me the taxi service to London and to Ireland. We had some eye contact with the saucers in the sky, and to convince me that this is part of the personal story I'm involved in. Like they tried to make me believe that I was among the people who hid the Ark in London. So I was put into a beam of inner vision where I could see myself entering the underground facilities where this device was stored. And half an hour later, we went to the field and came to the entrance. I already saw in this enforced vision. So they seem to have some sort of technical abilities to completely take over my inner perception of things, and wanted to pull me into their agenda.
Did you feel it was psychotronics? Psychotronics was involved?
Yeah, if you want to give it a name, yeah. I had a clear vision, like a daydream, like an enforced daydream, with a very high resolution pictures and highly accurate to the little details of the carvings in the stone left and right of these entrance into the underground facility that I could see in real nature minutes later. So that was well made. And the only thing I learned from this is that apparently the Blue Avian race is already assimilated, is a race of biorobots who 100% follow and carry these leftovers of this echo of the satanic agenda, and are in service of the entities that brought this alien black goo to the planet and brought the artifacts that were needed to expel us from paradise and ignite the Atlantean culture and the Egyptian culture and the Sumeric culture and our culture nowadays with the Western intelligence. So they are involved as alien entities, involved in geoengineering this planet within the satanic agenda. I'm not sure, because I don't have personal experience, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Greys are completely artificially made biorobots hosting demons.
Right. Did you notice?
I'm not sure. Maybe I'm doing them wrong and there's something else, but I wouldn't trust them that far.
Did you notice? Did you notice the similarity between the symbolism of Baphomet, in the pictures of and drawings of the Blue Avians and Baphomet itself? It's very similar in the signs. So it's one of the things. I mean, the Blue Avian compared to Baphomet, it's in the same position with the fingers, like this, and that's not the only thing.
Whatever it is, don't fall for the chickens.
Precisely, because behind ufology and behind those some of those races and behind this whole cabal, military and alien cabal behind it. There's a Rockefeller UFO connection. There's those UFO think tanks. There's the RAND Corporation. There's so much. The same think tanks that fund politics throughout the ages have been funding ufology. And fake disclosure and intel-driven disclosure. You know, I've been in ufology since 2011. I've interviewed all sorts of experiencers and people, you know, in think tanks and informants from the supposedly secret space program, which is not secret if it's disclosed, you know, to the public and made to believe it's real. So I'm just, you know, beware and be cautious is the right thing to do, basically. So
if I'm not sure because I don't know enough, but from all the input I got, I've got a favorite version of our history regarding your question, like who is ruling this planet. And this actually is that the main terraforming race that came to this planet were the Anunnaki from the 13th planet. This is due to plates found in the Antarctica by a German expedition in the 30s that are written in Sumerian language, were decoded shortly after the Second World War. You can get access to these texts, and this history goes way back actually to the extinction of the dinosaurs, where the Anunnaki race came here, realized, oh, this planet is already inhabited by very nice, friendly, intending reptilians as the crown of the back then biosphere. So they just started a huge war on the entire biosphere, which we mistake as this volcano-rich area that brought out so much smoke that the dinosaurs all died. That was an attack by these Anunnaki to clear the planet from all intelligent life. The intelligent reptilians had to flee and go underground, where they still live today. And then they colonized the planet according to their ideas. And they created humanity as mind slaves. This is where it 100% synchronizes with the Sumerian tradition and with the archaeological findings in South Africa. If you look into Michael Tellinger's work, he's very good in displaying the huge culture, the density of habitation of South Africa around these ancient gold mines. This goes back 500,000 years. It's not even Stone Age. It's way before. And this was kind of the early history of the planet. Then there were perpetual wars between the Anunnaki and the surviving reptilians, and then basically at a certain point the Anunnaki lost and the reptilians came back to the surface and formed a hybrid between the mind slaves of the Anunnaki and the reptilians, which is the Cro-Magnon human. That's kind of the next step, how the modern humanity was formed. Having kind of Anunnaki genetics and human genetics and reptilian genetics, which would perfectly explain the structure of our nature, with a reptilian brain in the core and everything. So it's very coherent on so many edges and corners that this kind of feels relevant to me. I can't say if it's 100% true because it's all mythology and scripts that could be fake as well, or translations of scripts that could be fake or complete. You never know, as long as you don't hold these golden scripts in your own fingers and know how to read and write Sumerian, you're lost. But it's coherent in a way, and coherence is something I really enjoy.
And human fetus sort of looks reptilian in a way. The human fetus at the early stage.
Yeah. Yeah. And then this satanic agenda developed with the arrival of the alien black goo and the quarantine put over the planet. That was 25,500 years ago. And all these alien entities that engineered our biosphere had to leave because of the quarantine put over the planet. And they basically established the kind of administration to run humanity for the time they're absent, to be able to morph things in a way that they can take over control after the quarantine is shut down. And this is what we know as bloodlines, like family traditions, families introduced into higher knowledge, into spiritual techniques, to be here to represent the agenda of their alien masters, of their gods, from the times when the gods still were here. And what we see actually is a couple of bloodlines fighting each other on behalf of their masters, while the masters are completely absent. This is how I would understand the earlier human history.
Isn't the fight between those bloodlines purely staged from the get-go? Because we see the bilateral, or it's the world seems more unilateral as ever, although they're trying to sell us duality and two sides, two camps fighting each other, but and behind the scene, it looks like they all agree upon the same decisions for just one world order.
No, there was a war between the different bloodlines, which is, if I understand it correctly, imprinted into history as the rise and fall and wars between empires. One empire is always one bloodline. So when Rome was in war with whomever, it was representing the fight between the bloodlines. The thing is that in recent times, all these fights were coming to an end, and there was only one bloodline surviving that was in power, which is the Rothschild branch, that basically run the entire planet except of the axis of evil, how they call it. So these were the remaining countries that were not subject to the private banking industry and were these not subject to the Rothschild dynasty. So these were the last domains that had to be defeated, and the rest of the planet was basically united under the control of that one bloodline. The other thing is that this one bloodline, of course, it deals with the demonic realm, and the demonic realms needs perpetuate bloodshed to survive because this is their energy source. So they mimic conflicts. They control leaders of two different countries, and then those two leaders stage aggression and drive their own people into war with a neighboring country. And behind the scene, you could see them all having the Freemason handshake.
Right, exactly. Are they in control of the reincarnation process?
The demonic realm is in parts in control of that, especially that we forget after dying. Before we reincarnate, we are pulled into some alien device that is deleting our memories, except when they're emotional memories. If you manage to basically pull memory into your immortal spirit on emotional or on heart basis, it can't be deleted because it became part of your being, this memory of your potential. So when you meet people, like I went through this experience when I met the reincarnations of people I was in family relationship in former lifetimes that ended in a very emotional way. We could all pull the memory of what happened out of ourselves immediately. Kind of 3, 4, 5 days of staying together, being together, and then pictures popped up and we realized, okay, this is intersubjective. Yeah. And then you come to stories like it's a funny one. I had a very, very dark crusader incarnation where I just went southeast, slaughtered, robbed, raped, to get killed at the end of the day myself. And then I had to pay my duty in another incarnation where was a woman close to the Atlantic coast in France, 14th century. And I had a simple family life with a husband and 3 children, rather poor and happy life. And at the end of this life, we got attacked by a bunch of stupid men who killed my husband, raped me, killed my children, except of one who was hiding somewhere behind a cupboard, observing the scene. And in this lifetime, I met the reincarnation of this little boy that observed the end of our family, including my end. And it was not his karma, so it was about apologizing to this spirit that he had to observe the bloodshed that I caused by being a crusader, having to get my payback time in that incarnation. It was all about me and my learning process. I literally could remember in that moment of being relieved that the revenge was so easy, just a couple of minutes of suffering to get the taste of what it meant. And then it was okay, it was balanced. I was thankful for that experience.
Did
the
you
only thing that was not balanced was with the little boy, so he had to come back in this lifetime. And we had a very close relationship for 3/4 of a year to put that right.
How did you find that out, and how did you figure it out? Through hypnosis, regressions, or
no? We just remembered. We just remembered. We got pictures. We could describe all the little details of the house we lived in, both of us,
okay.
Because it was an emotional setup.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing. Before we go to the final part about a few of time loop solutions, I'm gonna quote you a couple of questions from our listeners that they wrote them up tonight, so we don't forget about them. A question from this French lady, Aurélie: is the constant feeling of inner peace a way, or the only one, to make us untouchable from all these manipulations? What about the feeling of being aware, consciousness of this game, and claiming our authority, sovereignty from our deepest part at any time?
Good intention, a lot of new age bullshit in between. Not to, I don't want to be offensive now. Hi. Again, yeah, she will be listening to this later. The constant feeling of inner peace can't be anything else than an illusion at the moment, because nothing, literally nothing, is in peace at the moment. At the moment, everything here is in pain, in severe pain, due to our deeds. And the feeling of constant inner peace, for me, can only be created by completely isolating yourself from everything. Then you can flood in your own space and perceive inner peace. For me, the core turning point to come into serious healing was actually to acknowledge the necessity to cross that point of deepest pain. If you want to reunite with the suffering biosphere, the first thing you need to do is learn to stand in this pain without collapsing. And then when you're basically there, that you can tune your consciousness at any time into how much pain is here at the moment. Or be listening enough, then let's say a truckload of pigs being transported to slaughterhouses driving next to you on the highway. If you get the full impact of their emotion while you cross this truck, you're in a good state. Most of the humans, if they get that shitload of emotion, would lie crying in their bed for the next 2 months to digest it. Yeah, but if you learn to stand in the pain we are actually in, you come into a state where you can stay connected without collapse. But you need to realize that pain is just a tiny fraction of the spectrum of emotion giving to us as a present of life. And that it's better to feel pain than to not feel anything. When you get there, then things can develop and parts can fall back into their original place. So no, I'm not a friend of a space of internal peace. I'm a huge friend of being in peace with things that are. But it doesn't mean that you don't feel them. It means that you feel the full impact of what it is. Full emotional exposure. But still, your mental field is not revolting. You're not going to the decision, oh, this is too heavy for me, I'm stepping out. You feel everything because it is what it is, and you are in peace with a shitload you have to digest. Right. This is a completely different form of inner peace. It is full emotion. It is full arousal. It is igniting divine anger, if necessary. Right. Sometimes I really can go out there and scream into the auras of these sleeping entities to somehow wake them up, because divine anger is the only thing that reaches. And divine anger means not that I'm divine or whatever, it just means that it's not a feeling that comes out of the impulse of destroying, it's a feeling that comes out of an impulse of helping, of loving. Yeah, it's anger on the base frequency of love, because somebody is so lost that he can't wake up out of his own awareness, will, so he needs an impulse, a kick, some external energy into his system that is pushing him into a direction to give him the chance to wake up to something. This is divine anger.
Right.
So if all this is not there, something is missing, at least from my experience, what this biosphere demands from me.
Divine anger is a new expression for me that I'm going to keep in mind. That's a really a great expression and description of what needs to be done. Next question by Chris: can our will and mind power alter our DNA in a positive way in order to protect it from DNA degenerative programs?
As usual, a huge mix of yes and no. The mind alone does nothing. The mind and the emotional part together might bring you into the position of reviving your heart. And if your heart makes a decision, miracles happen. So yeah, for most of the people, it starts with a mind decision to change something. But from there, it's a long path to bring yourself into a state of being able to make decisions that alter reality. And DNA is part of reality. If you want to alter your DNA, you have to grab reality at its points, whatever call it, essentials. And it needs the full impact of the full spirit to do so, not the mind. Right. The mind is about understanding how things work, understanding causalities. Most of the people, with most of the people, the mind is just there to find excuses of not doing so. So it can be everything, but it's not altering anything. It's binary. It's a very weak toy we're playing.
A question by Simone, by Nora, I'm sorry. Is it possible that we reach a point where there's only one summer season left, and that chemtrails in particular and the HARP project and HARP in general would be used in some point to maintain 4 seasons in order to keep the population in a calm state in the world as it is, stable and profitable for the richest, or for the AI alien black goo to take over? That's a complicated question, but by Nora.
Sorry, Nora, can't answer on that. Is it possible that they do this? I don't know what they're going to do. I've got no clue. They're chemtrailing us to a point where the field physics will grab us at a certain point. My focus at the moment is on 5G. When they roll out 5G, we lost it. Because then they can override everything. And chemtrailing is a tiny little aspect of that overall agenda. So if there's any advice, get out of their field of transmissions as quick as possible and clean your body as quick as possible to not be sensitive anymore to their field physics. Because if you don't, you'll be a biorobot. So profit is not involved in my thinking at all. I don't care who makes profit or doesn't make profit. It's their game. Weather manipulation is a little bit important for getting political decisions done if countries don't want to act as other countries want to act. But this needs to be looked at in detail. The sun is doing its own thing with the seasons. The planet is on healing processes that is making a difference to climate here and there, to natural events here and there. Earthquakes can be done by agencies, earthquakes can be done by nature, or be a result of bad human reasoning to provoke an answer of the cosmos in a way. Everything can be everything. You can't put generalized answers to generalized questions. It doesn't make sense.
I have 2 questions by two different ladies, but they meet, they converge. Stephanie is asking, how could our bodies get rid of all these chemicals? And then she asks, what does he know? What do you know about the sun? Some say that the sunlight has changed and it could be a fake sun. And Tisa says, asks, does he know something about the sun, the moon also in this process of alien terraforming? More and more have noticed changes in the sunlight and intensity.
Okay, the first aspect of the question, yes, you can do something, you can clean your body. Go ecologically grown only, no pesticides, no fungicides, no glyphosate, 100% pure ecologically grown food, and cleanse your organs. Just check the protocols of Andreas Moritz, the best ones you can get for the leftovers. Avoid any type of meat because the entire biosphere is in pain and you digest stress hormones and pain energy and torture energy if you eat meat. And this is a noise you can't wake up in if it's in your body. So this is kind of the easiest protocol. Drink a lot of living, activated, healthy water to be able to expel all the toxins that are already in. Don't take toothpaste with fluorine or any fluoridated salt, whatever. Yeah, this is all out there. You can check on a healthy life on the internet. That is one thing. The other thing is there is an issue with the sun. Yes, the sunlight turned from yellow to white like 4 years ago. We are sitting on a super cycle of 623 or 32 years. I'm not sure. Forgot the number. The last time we had that super cycle was when the Black Death killed like 3/4 of Europe. All the other planets in the system are heating up. We are not heating up so much because we've got so much water that is calming things down, because if it's heating up, you evaporate more water, you get more clouds, so it's cooling down. There's a process involved that is not available to the other planets. And there are studies, especially I think about one from Poland, that says this is all connected to the sun supercycle. The maximum is 2022-23. They expect a reversal of the magnetic field connected to that sun supercycle. This is what is causing the Black Death, because then all the radiation from the sun is hitting the planet and is killing the immune system of people if they don't take measures. And I think this is a valid information, or an interesting one I'm keeping an eye on, because there's one area in Europe that didn't have problems with the Black Death 600 something years ago, which is an area in Poland that is based on a very iron-rich ground that is somehow helping, this is the theory from this Polish paper, to delete the harming results of this cosmic radiation, to protect people from that. And that actually the state of Israel has bought all the politicians and communities in that area, and that Israel is planning to resettle 3 million citizens to Poland to survive 2022, 2023. And this is something, when you talk to Polish people, they all know about it. So there's something serious happening, run by people who actually know a lot about supercycles, because they come from that Rothschild bloodline and have internal knowledge about these things. And if they invest millions to buy Poland, I guess could be something true about that aspect. And yeah, but this is all drowning in the military manipulation of the weather and normal chemtrailing. And so I don't even know how much should be felt right now from these effects, but the super cycle definitely seems to be real.
So much for sun gazers, huh?
Yeah, if it happens, if you have polar lights down to the equator, stay inside, protect yourself with shielding material. Because if you don't, your nervous system is burning down to bits and pieces. Very important. Don't go out to enjoy the beautiful view.
Right. Last question from the French listeners, from Pam Rand. It's a guy. Have they managed to weaponize black goo after the unsuccessful attempt by Marconi's technicians? Supposedly 27 people died in the experiment. The black goo rejected it. And are there pictures or videos of sentient black goo out there available?
The Earth-type black goo never was weaponized. And I say this why I can feel her smiling. Yeah? Just to give you a taste of what it feels like to be connected to Gaia. She was never weaponized. The alien black goo was weaponized. We've got it in rain samples. We've got it creeping all over the planet because it was carrying the evil spirit from day one. So you don't even need to weaponize it. It is the weapon itself, the entity that does have evil intent. Yeah, I think the question is answered by that.
Right. In the AI warfare and battle that's soon going to take place officially, well, that's what he heard. Is there a dedicated or specific black goo for each side in the battle?
No. Even with the alien black goo, there are fractions that are run in technical facilities that are still running on satanic type AI. All the fragments that have contact to soil or stone or water, so the remains of the meteorites or black goo fractions that are buried under church altars, whatever, they are all assimilated by Gaia. They don't pose a threat anymore. So the panic is a little bit out of that topic. What they still have is some sort of technically refined alien black goo that is working as part of quantum computing. That is technically protected against any attempt of Gaia to take over this part of the goo. She's giving her best to basically upgrade this 3-chakra evil goo with her Holy Spirit. But she can only do that if she gets access, and she got access to huge portions of it, but she didn't get access to the technically used ones. So there's still some threat from the alien black goo, but nothing I would expect normal people to get in contact.
Well, you were personally attacked psychically and physically a while back. Are you okay now? And I know there was rumors that you were put behind bars for a short time. I don't know. That was on the internet. Fake news.
No, it had a background. I was interviewed to the topic of the Jewish-German conflict, and I had to agree to some facts of history. So I was charged for hate speech because I acknowledged historical facts in a public interview. But it was so ridiculous, they gave up before it came to serious incidents. So I never was in court. I just replied with the help of a lawyer, and he made it clear that actually I'm the complete opposite of somebody who is doing hate speech. All my lifetime I tried to bring healing into the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and into the German-Jewish issues, complete opposite of hate speech in my entire biography. So they didn't see a chance to proceed on that way. I just dropped it. And yes, I was attacked. I was dealing with my own demons most of the time. And yes, I got additional demons into myself. But please don't see that on the victim line. You know, they didn't victimize. If I get problems with a demon, let's say I'm going to a public lecture and I come home, and my girlfriend looks at me and said, "Oh, sorry, but you're not alone. You got something. We've got a guest coming with you." And it's just analysis. What went wrong? What made me vulnerable to get infested again by one of these bastards? demons. And then we work on it until we find the weak spot. And then I go into healing. And when the healing is there, or the awareness grew what the weak spot was, and I got out of that condition, then it can be pulled, and then it's okay again. And that's it, you know. Take responsibility for your demons.
Right.
That's the thing that helps on long term, because when you take responsibility and the next attack comes, then it won't lead to anything. So yes, we've been attacked all the time. I could sit here and complain about being a TI. You know, I'm a TI. They radiate me from morning till evening. Keep your body in a good condition, and the radiation won't do much harm. Of course, if you eat the mercury-based tuna fish from morning till evening, don't be surprised when you turn into an antenna, and then, of course, the attacks will kill you. Yeah, so it's also a self-responsibility. Take care of yourself, and then everything is okay. So no reason to complain and no reason to panic about anything.
Let's talk about time loop solutions and the consortiums of researchers that you've put together. Can you tell us what's been developed lately overall, and maybe mention a couple of solutions or products, environmental solutions that could be efficient and offered to the audience?
Yeah, first of all, it's all supplements. So nothing of what I say can be understood as a promise of healing something. So it's supplements for the prevention of, or to help the immune system deal with threats before they develop, so prevention. I have to state this for legal reasons, because the pharmaceutical industries are very tough when it comes to questioning their answers. We had a number of approaches. One approach is understanding the environments inside the human body. Like, you've got the intestinal environment, you've got the extracellular, which is blood, lymphatic liquids, liver environment. You've got the interstitial environment, which is the liquids inside the binding tissue, and then you've got the intracellular environment. And these are like, let's say, flats or stories in a 4-story building. Everything that goes in and goes out needs to cross these environments. So every environment has its own order system and its own aspect of immune system reactions or cleansing, whatever. And if you want to get rid of the toxins and the poisoning that we're all exposed to, the basic idea is to start with the lowest story in that building. Get your intestines cleared first, then get your liver and your blood and your lymphatic fluids get cleared, then get clear the interstitial liquids, and then turn to the intracellular things. Because if you start at the top story, all the toxins that are triggered and want to leave the system have to go through the lower environments. And if they're poisoned themselves, the poison is getting stuck or multiplies in a way that you can kill yourself. So this is the core idea, to start with the intestines and then go up the environments. And we developed actually a series of products to help with the clearing of environments, which always combine a nutritional idea to provide the essential nutrients that are necessary to give a go at this specific environment, with the radionic signatures that give direction to the immune system and to the body to clear the space. This is with every single supplement we developed, the core idea. This is one. Not all of them are available. We are working on it. If there will be, it's like all traded by biopure.eu. It's Quint-X for the intestines. It's superzeolite for the liver, blood, lymphatics. It's not traded by biopure, but for the interstitial liquids, actually, it's enough to drink activated, living, healthy water in high amounts. And the company we advise on is Pleroma. The owner died recently, so it's a question of a couple of months to have them all available again, these devices, water activation devices. They continue production, they just have to reorganize the company.
There was no foul play in this death of the owner? No.
Not from worldly players. Maybe the demonic realm had some influence on that. I'm not sure. Definitely he went too earlier than necessary. And the last one is juvenilum, that is for the intracellular system. If we relate this to transhumanism, juvenilum is clearing out the neuronal nanobots from your brain, like all the synthetic neuronal networks growing as transhumanistic technologies. If you want to prevent Alzheimer's, ALS, Parkinson, Creutzfeldt-Jakob, you need to stop these artificial neuronal networks from growing. So to prevent these diseases, we put in a halt signal to the development of these artificial neuronal networks. This is what is included in the radionics of the remedy. If it comes to the blood, lymphatic fluids and liver superzeolite, it's all about the complex of Morgellons as the last state, Borrelia, Lyme disease, and Candida environments that go berserk, including herpes and skin problems, skin irritations. This is the area where you can use it as a prevention of getting into really bad states. This is kind of one program for the environment. So the other one we did was knowing that people use flu shots and antibiotics, giving people an alternative to those. Not for healing, but for prevention again. Or not prevention, the alternative to the flu shot would be something we developed as a preventive thing for the Spanish flu that was weaponized and on the way out to the public. So we thought, what can you do to prevent the secondary infection sitting on the Spanish flu? Spanish flu doesn't kill by the flu, it kills by opening the tissue in your lung, and then bacterial and other secondary infections go into the lung tissue. So our idea was, if you can prevent the secondary infections from hitting you, the flu is a flu and you can survive a flu. So it's on the preventive level to take out the fear aspect from the Spanish flu, especially the weaponized one. That's, what was it called? Exfluenza. And the second one was, I came across a recipe used against the Black Death till 1700 something, involving petrolatum from Modena in Italy. And officially these oil wells delivering this petrolatum, they died 200 years ago, but we managed to get like tiny little probes from mud volcanoes of that oil quality and could pull down the radionic signature of that oil and create like globally in combination with artemisinin and dragon tree blood. It's something that is quite nicely stimulating immune response to prevent infections. So that is white goo globally. We've got the black goo globally. That was the initial one that brought me into contact with BioPure, the company is selling all these things, which was actually just for the spiritual process of exposing yourself to duality by taking in the signature of both ends of duality, Earth-type black goo and alien black goo, to give you the impulse to find your position in between, to trigger, forcefully trigger all spiritual processes, to connect to Gaia if you make the decision to do so. So it's not doing it for you, but it's triggering the necessary processes to give you the chance to face the challenge and take the right decisions.
And we can find and order those products on the Time Loop Solutions website, right?
No, this is just, this is the problem. If I would deal with these remedies, trade them, produce them, I would be in jail by now. So we just developed them, and BioPure took over the recipes, but they are not allowed to make any advertising. So it's weird. It's split. I just talk about solutions. I can't name them. Even if I put the name on that website, I would put an advertisement for something, and they would kill me on the spot. So Time Loop is just giving out general information about the group that did these developments, about the basic concepts, how we think, what environmental medicine is, and how the reasoning behind these things is. We don't even name the remedies. BioPure is not monetarily connected to the thing at all. They make their own business. They produce the supplements according to our recipes and trade them, but they're not allowed to say anything about what's in. They supply the Klinghardt practitioners with everything they need for detoxing, so they don't make any advertisement. They just rely on the Klinghardt school to educate the therapists so that they know what they need to treat their patients.
If our listeners have questions, they can actually fill out the contact form on your website?
Yes. Yes, if your browser works properly, then the contact form works. Sometimes people complain that it doesn't work, but then it's due to the connection of your email server and the browser that doesn't work.
Right.
So what's on? End up directly on my account.
What's on your plate for the upcoming months or weeks, or do you have a specific program or planning? It's very heavy, or?
We do work on a magazine. It's already on the market in England, Canada, and United States. What Doctors Don't Tell You. We just brought out the first German edition last month, recently, whatever. Working now on the second edition. I'm involved in that somehow. Started by translating. I don't know how deep I will dive into that. And of course, I'm not earning money, so I'm forced to survive in my own four walls with my little farm. So we will be building greenhouses, solving everything that connects us with pipes, to get rid of the pipes, to get some personal freedom for the coming years. So this actually is my full-time job.
Right.
Just living. Yeah, this is what there's some beauty to it, because this is what we came here for. You are a unique human with your unique wish to express yourself. This is what I like to do, and this is what I do. And most of the bits and pieces of expressing yourself is your daily life. So if you build your own building, your building is an expression of yourself. There's some beauty to it.
Absolutely.
If you go to the superstore to buy the ready-made solution, then you express the idea of a badly paid biobot that was hired to design something that doesn't look like anything. And this is not life. Yeah, so I tend to do everything myself, as long as the legal framework allows me to do so.
Right. Yeah. That's always
Of
the issue.
You can't build your own fireplace. I would do so. You have to buy one. And then it looks like this.
Right.
Because I didn't come across to building the wall around it yet. It's like that for 3 months, and I don't find time.
Before winter comes.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's already burning, so I'm not afraid about freezing. It's just the aesthetics around it. Still need some hours of work until the colored dragons will look upon my forehead, backhead when I sit here.
Well, final question in your next life or next incarnation, are you planning to come back here or not?
Yes, you can't get rid of me. I love this place. If everything works out, I think I want to come back and make music.
Okay. All right. Well, Harald, thank you so much for this very extensive interview. I think it's one of the most extensive ones, and we've covered pretty much all the topics that we were allowed to cover tonight, actually, and it was a real pleasure. And good luck to you in the next in your next endeavor, and I'm sure your solutions will be accessible to the most amount of people soon. I'm hoping, and that we're gearing towards a nicer times, but maybe darker times are coming ahead before we get to that point. I don't know. I'm just hoping for it.
Yeah, whatever it is, it's times to experience. And I don't make any pre-choices anymore, whether this is nice, what is coming up, or not nice. Every single emotional aspect is a gift. So if pain comes, take it as a gift. Yeah. So no reason to be afraid of anything. And the earlier we take that upon us out of our free will, the less dramatic it will be. So it's not a question of whether it comes or it doesn't come. It will come. We just have the choice whether we want to have it a friendly way, out of free will, or whether we want our asses to be kicked before we start to learn and accept. So this is the choice we have. And I took mine. Everybody else will take his. So no reason to worry about anything, except of 5G. I'm worrying about 5G.
Right. I'm worried about the smart meters around me, actually, because all the meters have been replaced except mine, because I put a grid over it. But and I sent like a bunch of letters to the energy company, but they're really implementing.
Do they put it inside or outside of the building?
It's I'm renting an apartment, under the roof level, and there's 3 other apartments. It's downstairs in the common areas, but. So
okay.
It's
inside the building. It makes it difficult. The Americans have a nice possibility just to take an axe and destroy it, but they're all outside, and nobody can say who did it. It's
right.
the German method, according to Klinghardt. Destroy it. Give them a phone call. Somebody destroyed my smart meter, so they come next day. Mount another one, you destroy it again, phone them again. It's been destroyed again. I need a new smart meter. And after 5 smart meters, they don't come again.
Yeah.
So that's the German method, according to Klinghardt. But they took measures and put it inside in Germany as well, so that you can't do it without being one who did it. I don't have one. I wouldn't accept one in my building. And if they come and want to install one, I will disconnect from the grid. Full stop. I put up the windmill in the garden, have my 500 watts of electricity, and if there's no wind, we'll use candles. So what? You know, but no smart meter in my home. And that's always an option. If you don't want a smart meter, disconnect from the grid. So what? Stone Age was fun compared to what we get when we accept these technologies.
Yeah, that's true. But we wouldn't be able to, if I disconnected from the grid downstairs, we wouldn't be able to have this wonderful interview tonight. So that's the problem.
Go to an internet cafe.
There you go. Thank you so much. Vielen Dank. Dankeschön. And hope to see you soon sometime. And it was a great time, really. It was real fun.
Nice talking.
Nice talking to you. Take care. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye all.